What is your opinion about the Oscar case? So in studio with me, give me some mic. Nick, where's this mic now? There we go. Nick van der Leek.
That's me.
Welcome to OFM studio.
Thanks, thank you.
On a lekker hot Sunday night.
Seems to be the coldest night of the year.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So thanks for the trouble coming out in this winter night, but amazing. Before we get to you wrote a couple of ebooks about Reeva, about Oscar, about the case. Before we get there, just for the listeners, a little bit of background. You're a journalist. That's all I know, and I know you fanatic about sport as well. Or a sportsman. What's your background?
Yeah, I don't actually think of myself as a journalist. I think of myself as a writer.
Okay.
I do a lot of freelance work for a lot of magazines. And that's not really, I'm not sort of doing that because that's what I want to do, if that actually makes sense. I'm actually writing these articles to be in a position eventually where I can do what I really want to do, which is publish fiction.
Okay, so your dream is to be a fiction writer at the end of the day.
But not an obscure fiction writer, fairly prominent one. It's very difficult getting into fiction, so I've taken this roundabout route, and the idea was really just to basically over a period of years and many articles to sort of introduce myself to the industry, all the various players, other writers, editors, publishers, and so on. Obviously, media company editors, but then eventually you get the attention, hopefully, of the book publishers. And
you're also a photographer?
Yeah, that's quite interesting because, I find a lot of people, on Facebook think that's what I am. I'm a photographer, so you get some people think I'm
that was the first thought I had.
Yeah.
Before not out of context of this whole Oscar case.
The photography is quite interesting. I've kind of got a bit of art, I guess, in my family. My brother's a sort of full-time artist. I'm quite a visual person. I think if you look at my fiction writing, it's quite visual. The photography I really just did to kind of complement the writing. I basically thought I'm not actually a qualified journalist. That's also why I wouldn't actually call myself that. I never studied journalism. But so when I started writing, I basically felt to deliver a good product, add photos and so on, and I think I was fairly good at that, and I think that helped me sort of move through through the industry faster maybe than someone else, it's obviously good value for the editor because they're getting words and
pics
at the same time.
Yeah. That's good. I'm not even qualified to be here. I'm qualified to counsel you if you've got some problems. Listen, so the Oscar case. First question, and there's it's a couple of things, and I think it's very interesting. But what grabbed you or your attention? What was the first thing that stood out, and you thought this is really getting into my head? Because just the way we spoke now for half an hour before the show. It's really in your head,
Definitely.
and you're living there, and when did that happen? Immediately? When did you get really interested in this case?
Well, I'm going to give myself a bit of a disclaimer, because I think, one could say this is opportunism and one's just jumping on the bandwagon. I'm kind of a curious person, and that's sort of how I do my, let's call it journalism. So I basically write about what interests me, and there have been some amazing. I actually studied law in my first year at university, so that was actually where my heart lay. Anyway, and I basically, I've been very, very interested in court cases like David Bain. If you can look at that in New Zealand, it's really, not to be disrespectful, but the Reeva case, it is a couple of orders of magnitude worse than that.
Yeah.
And what is shocking with that case is how split New Zealand is on his innocence.
But it's the same, It's a total 50-50 split thing. People think is the pro or against.
I'm not sure if it's 50-50 now, but
Yeah,
it
it's
certainly
getting
was.
worse for him.
And it's a very interesting situation when you have people absolutely convinced either way, and the difference between them and me, I guess, is I also want to know what's happening, and I have an opinion like everyone else, but I want to instead of just asking the question and answering it, I want to go and check that answer myself. And the amazing thing is, you've got Google, you can actually get a hell of a lot of information that's in the public domain, compile it. Not everyone has the time to do that, but if you do, you end up with a hell of a lot of data, and then you basically analyze it. And I'm a very analytical person.
It's like a study, and you just put it to words. But
Yeah,
that's
you
why
join the
I don't
dots.
see it as opportunistic, if we can get back
Thank
to that
you.
point, because people will go and say, listen,
Yeah.
you're just jumping on the bandwagon
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
But
Well,
for
look-
me, the angle you took, and
Yeah.
and especially if we can focus, how many ebooks have you written about this case? It's about 6 or 3.
Well, there's three
on the
and
Oscar,
2 to
but
go.
and
Yeah.
2 to go. So, but the one that I spent some time on was Reeva through her Facebook or social media.
Yeah.
So for me, that was fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's scary as well, because I realized now, the first time it was in court, her WhatsApp message, I thought, but where's the privacy? You can't just, even if I do something wrong now, they just take my phone and say, this is what this guy did.
Yeah,
Nothing is secret anymore. But the way that it's written, it's like a diary. How did you come up with that idea? And I think that's a great thing. And we're going to give away some of your ebooks. We'll get to that later. and I want to just convince the listeners, jy wil een van hulle wen. Want I was gripped immediately, want dit gee vir jou, ons besef nie in Facebook hoeveel kan jy van 'n mens leer. So first of all, how did you come up with the idea, or when did that hit you, say, listen, let's go check from day one on the Facebook, and amazing it wasn't deleted.
Yeah. It's still there, although I think
So it's still there,
if
Facebook.
you're not her friend,
Were you friends with her before she died?
yeah. Well, on Facebook,
Yeah, but on Facebook.
yeah.
You see, but I can't do it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's
Okay,
the
so
interesting
that's
part
where
is
it
if you're
started.
not friends with her,
You can't go back. Yeah.
even if you search for her on Facebook, she won't be there. But if
Yes.
you are friends with her, she's
Still there.
which is quite something. But I mean,
Sure.
to me, I don't know. I sort of look at the media and I look at what they're talking about, and I kind of frown because, that to answer your question, why did I do this, or what was the reason? Well, it was all about Oscar. Harry and Nell keep saying that as well. It's all about Oscar, and the media repeat that, and it's still been all about Oscar even now. And I was just personally curious. Who was his girlfriend? Who, what did he see in her? Who was she? Was she an opportunist, or was she what kind of person was she? And then you would sort of wait for the information to come through, and I think some of the earliest information that came through was Cecil Myers saying, he was like she was his Joburg dad, and so on and so on. And then there was silence. You didn't really hear from her family. You didn't really hear from anyone. You heard a little bit dribs and drabs from friends and so on, but it was very constrained, I thought.
Yes.
So
It's
in
true.
the end, it was like this dearth of kind of Oscar coverage, and I was like, who's Reeva? And one day it just sort of occurred to me, because I do photography and I've got a lot of models, that I'm friends with on
Yes.
Facebook, basically just to stay in touch, to do shoots and so on. I sort of just wondered, I wonder if we're friends on Facebook. I actually didn't know at that point. So I didn't, a lot of people describe her as a supernova, and she was this great, but I didn't even realize that we were friends when we were friends. I don't remember adding
But
her.
it's
I
the
don't,
great thing that happened when you realize, listen,
So-
I can go backwards up till.
Yeah.
Day
I
one.
presume, I think I added as a friend, I think I added her probably mid-2012. Maybe she may have appeared in FHM, and I may have sort of
Yes.
added her as a sort of note for the future, something like that. As I said, I don't consciously remember her face even. I didn't really remember her. Even when I saw pictures of her, didn't really ring a bell. And then I put her name in my Facebook, and there she was. And then I sort of looked at her page, and I recognized another photographer, and I recognized, I basically just looked at the sort of the last day, and it's quite a sort of a potent thing to read that stuff, and it's obviously within the context of soon you're not going to be around, you sort of
and it's going to happen to us all. I think it's a shocking thing. It was so big, but then you went back to her first post on Facebook.
No, it was very gradual. I basically, I saw that. I sort of thought I'd seen what I needed to see, and then that thing just never got answered. I kept thinking, well, who is she? And no one answered it. No one came forward. There was never this sort of, I don't know, I never really felt satisfied that her story was told. And the closest person, I think, well, for me, who told it was the editor of FHM, and he gave such a beautiful sort of testimony about her. And anyway, and then I guess I went back at some stage, and I basically, there were a couple of things that I noticed that really obviously hooked me, I guess. The one, in the context of her dying, very shortly before she died, she put up 2 pictures, not photos, but like artworks. And one of them was a kind of a drawing just passing through, and I guess the artistic side in me sort of recognized depth there, not just depth in the artwork, but depth in her, the fact that this meant something to her. And when I saw that, I think something kind of clicked, and it was like, wow, this is someone. This isn't just a sort of an airhead or whatever. It's someone of substance. And then there was another picture almost at the same time, and it was a picture of almost like a cartoon picture, but of I think it actually came off a Twitter line, but it automatically came onto Facebook. But it was to do with Anini Boyson.
Oh yes,
and
that was
Reeva was quite upset by that and quite touched by that. I've got to say, I'm a man, so I don't know if there's a difference between how a woman responds to gender violence and how a man does, but as a man, I basically saw that, and at the time I was writing this fiction thing, and I was horrified. I was horrified that, I don't know if you remember, she was cut open.
Yes, it was a very, very bad way to go.
And the guy actually stuffed a broken bottle, I think, into. And when I saw that, I was really, really, really horrified. And I mean, it's the sort of thing, and what I'm trying to write is also about, how you find meaning through, you need to find meaning in life, but one of the ways you do is by comparing it to, or putting it within the perspective of death, right? And I actually took that terrible thing that happened to her, and I put it into my story to kind of demonstrate the evil of one of the characters. So it wasn't like, so it actually was that personal to me, right? So, and I mean, I guess the more I sort of looked at Reeva, the more things just resonated with me. I don't know, it's difficult to explain. And then I started basically going backwards through a timeline, and that was also a surprise for me, because I think a lot of us don't realize that you post something on Facebook, and then it's the next day, and you post something else, and you post something else. But you actually,
it's telling a story.
Yeah, you are laying down a narrative.
Yes,
it's kind of like a diary.
That's why I say I was gripped immediately. By your book, the part that I've read this afternoon.
I can promise you and all your listeners, if you had to go into your own Facebook right now,
it's a very
you had to click on, say, today, a year ago, and click on today, because that's what you can do. You can
you do it? Can you do it?
There's a
I've never done it.
Hey, no, you can do that.
So because I always think, where was I? What did I say in 2007?
There's a little blue bar.
Okay.
And it's got your like a series of dates on it. And as soon as you click on the date, it kind of populates. And then there are a couple of months. Then you click on that month, then the month populates, and so on. And and so what I think you don't realize, you may say, well, that's a lovely book you wrote. What people don't realize is, to actually accumulate that, you had to go painstakingly through You've got to wait for the pages to load.
Nee, that's ours.
Dit was baie werk.
Ja.
Ja.
We're going to get back to it. So, as jy net ingeskakel het, jy luister OFM die klank van jou lewe. My ateljeegas hier Jorney kom praat met my saam met Jorney is Nick van der Leek wat e-boeke geskryf het. By Amazon is hulle topverkopers op hierdie stadium. Ons sal net daarby kom. Ons gaan ook van hulle weggee. So jy moet ingeskakel wees, man. Veral hierdie een oor Reeva. So as jy nou net die draad gevang het, hy het ingegaan, hulle is Facebook vriende, tot van haar eerste posting op Facebook, om 'n idee te kry wie was Reeva Steenkamp. En dit is ongelooflik fascinerend, en dit is ook die storie van elkeen van ons se lewens as jy op Facebook is, om te besef maar, jy is besig om 'n storie daar te vertel, en baie mense vertel wat die dag gebeur het, of hulle is hartseer, of hulle is kwaad, maar jy kan net vir my ook laat weet, op ons Facebookblad, OFM, The Sound of Your Life page, en ek vra vir jou daar, wat is jou opinie oor die Oscar saak? What is your opinion about the Oscar case? And I must say, as 'n hele paar comments al klaar, en hulle verskil, you know, we're going to get back to this, I'm just going to play a song, but that's what we said, some people just go immediately guilty, not guilty, other ones is this, and I'm feeling, so bly ingeskakel, ons gaan nog lekker gesels oor die Oscar saak, nog nooit daaraan geraak met my geselsprogram op Sondag aand nie, so ek het net gedink, dis nou so 'n bietjie tyd. Maar hierso is Granny Smith, Starlight, jy luister OFM, die klank van jou lewe. Is Granny Smith met Starlight op OFM, die klank van jou lewe, en hy het met Bart gesels daarvan ry te sê, hy sukkel om ons Facebook te kry. So ek weet ook nie, miskien moet ek vir Bart soek en vir hom 'n link stuur. Ek dink is die maklikste. So Bart sal net weer moet bel en sy van vir ons weer deurgee. As jy net ingeskakel het, ons gesels oor Oscar vir die eerste keer, die Oscar saak, maar ook 'n ander ons kom met 'n ander invalshoek in, oor 'n boek, Reeva in Her Own Words. Dit is 'n e-boek geskryf deur Nick van der Leek. Ek het 'n paar bladsye gelees en ek was onmiddellik, I was hooked immediately. As jy net ingeskakel het, dit gaan oor Nick het teruggegaan op haar Facebook tot haar eerste posting om agter te kom of wie is sy. And that's the thing, Nick, she wasn't, if like Minky van 'n Westhuizen gets killed tonight. You know, she's been in our living rooms and on TV and in our magazines for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
She's a well-known person, but the thing, Reeva was just becoming famous. I mean, she died, and then only she was on TV with that Tropical Island program.
Yeah.
That was quite shocking. But so she was just before she made the break of becoming her own brand. So going back on her Facebook history, what's the thing that was either very emotional for you or for you touching that got you a bit?
When you first asked that, I sort of kind of drew a blank, but now that I think about it, I could really identify with her because she, you know, it's been this long struggle actually to emerge, you know, and you could actually argue that she still hadn't, you know, she actually hadn't made it or whatever. I wouldn't say that. I think she was kind of emerging. She was really on fire, kind of, especially in February. She was really doing well. You know, she was coming out in magazines. She was on TV. You know, so compared to the sort of 5-year run up, she was finally, you know, doing
just
it.
before a breakthrough. Yeah.
So I mean, this was a long. People may think, you know, she sort of made it. She sort of did a shoot, and the next thing she was in a magazine. It was really a long process, and I can identify with that because it's been a long process for me to emerge as a writer. You could also say I haven't emerged, you know, and you know, sometimes you may walk around thinking you've done something, and you speak to people and they've never ever heard of you, you know, and it's quite humbling, you know.
What date was her first? Roundabout when was her first Facebook postings?
I should know. I think it's about 2007.
And seven.
Yeah.
Now, most of it's actually amazing. About 80% of people, 2007.
Yeah.
And it's a long time to follow post.
Yeah.
And there was nothing was given away that you felt with her relationship with Oscar, kind of sometime, let's say 2 weeks before.
Well,
what people would say, because it's actually normal for someone to say, listen, Oscar scared me a bit now. Not that straight, but someone will say, I'm so mad now, and you would, without a word saying it's Oscar, but you will think she's talking about Oscar because you know her. So there was nothing like that.
Her Facebook's very, very impressive, actually. You know, if someone had to do the kind of analysis I did, to me, I would be pretty afraid, and I think most of us would be, but I would be especially afraid. I'm quite sort of I think I've calmed down a bit, but I can be quite, I guess, opinionated and sometimes even aggressive. And she was sort of classy and so, I don't know, just a very, I don't know, I can't put it in another way, just to say she was really well brought up. Very
stand-up girl.
Yeah, just, and that's your own little space, so I guess you can go nuts if you want to, and you've got your own captive audience. But, she, it's not like, she also wasn't, she wasn't being fake and just saying nice things. If something upset her, like rhino poaching or something, she would swear. But I mean, I think that's deserved.
That makes us all swear.
And there were a couple of incidents with crime. And so she was passionate and emotional and about things I think that mattered, and I think we should be. But she was so, I don't know, she was just... I don't know, like I just found her a very, very nice person. And, the more this case goes on, the more you actually realize, wow, it's what one can't say, well, if someone is not really a nice person, it's okay if they died. But I'm just saying she was an extraordinary person.
It is a question coming up, and it's a very controversial thing to say. At any place, whether it's a braai or now on radio. But if Reeva wasn't a pretty girl, it's part of our society. It would have been probably half the reaction, 20% the reaction. Do you agree with me? I'm thinking, let's say not even average. If she wasn't like a model, and it's a sad thing about our society. But it's this perfect looking girl. She's pretty. She looks lovely.
She's that's another part that's very interesting. Is she it was a long period of training and working and a lot of gym effort. What you come across, and I mean this touched me quite a lot reading her story, is she was often sick. She was often moving. There were quite a few people in her life that died, like over the period, and so you sort of got this impression that on the one side there was a lot of glamour and a lot of excitement and so on, but right next to it, like as in right next door, was struggling with money, struggling with getting work, struggling with not being able to maybe afford something and having to move. I've been through that, and it's stressful. It's extremely stressful. And so you've got to put on this brave face on the one hand, and you're doing what you love, but it's also like very, very, very tough. And so you've got this sort of. There's a saying, I think they say with photographers, we overprivileged and underpaid. So we sort of get to. Mingle with some, high society people. You in these sort of 5-star scenarios.
But you still don't drive the Porsche.
Yeah, I mean, I once went with a girlfriend on a blue train, and you sipping champagne, and the next thing you back in your humble abode. It's
that happens. But she was on that line. So Reeva, in her own words, not a lot of media.
Yes,
you say you struggle with media picking up. I think it's a fantastic angle. Like I said, the parts that I've read, ek wil ouens motiveer en sê, as ons net te veel gaan sê, hoe kan jy 25 van hulle wen? Maar nou weer eens, soos Amazon, it's at this stage one of their best sellers.
Yeah, well, it went up to 11. I'm not sure where it is now. I think it's 30th or something. It sort of fluctuates a bit.
And that's on their ebooks.
Yeah. It's there's .com and then there's .co.uk, so it's different on various ones. But in the biography section, it got up to 11. I'd love it to get to obviously 5 or 1 or whatever it is. But what surprised me, I must say, is everyone says it's all about Oscar, and it's the media certainly seem to be playing the tune of the story is not Reeva, the story is Oscar. Let's stick to Oscar. And for me, I recognize that Oscar's a story, but for me personally, I wanted to know about this other person, and that's what I say if you read the description to Reeva, I said, Reeva's also got a story. Reeva's also kind of like an athlete who was gymming like hell, and she was also, she had to lose something like 15 kilograms until FHM accepted her.
That's a lot of hard work and a doelwit wat jy moet gehad het.
How hard it is to lose that sort of weight and keep it off.
You must ask me, I can't still. But now, another question. I don't know if you researched this, and I think going back to you as well, being a writer, is that, has it ever been done? Isn't this the first time that someone goes on Facebook? Maybe you must send a copy to Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
And I said, but listen, this is a worldwide trial because of Facebook. This is a book because it's really gripping.
Yeah.
And what vir my wat belangrik is om te pand, is dat dis net soos ek en jy sit, is ons elkeen besig met daai storie. If I die tomorrow, I'm not that famous. Definitely not in Durban in America and India, but still. You can, someone says, okay, but he was here in Central South Africa, let's see who he was. It's actually an amazing thing to go back and to figure out who someone. So just quickly, the other two books. What's the other two books?
The second one is Recidivist Acts.
That's a very big word for a guy like me. What?
Yeah, I struggled to type it out properly. Recidivist.
Recidivist.
Yeah.
Recidivist works.
Acts. Yeah.
Act. Okay,
yeah,
what does it mean? Recidivist. What does it mean? I don't even know.
Someone who sort of falls into not the best behavior. You sort of fall back into kind of criminal behavior. Yeah, and does that term not ring a bell to you?
Not at all. I've never heard that word. I saw it when you mailed me the info, and I couldn't even say it. Recidivist. I've never used it, but I'm going to use it tomorrow.
But can you imagine if you master that word and you insult someone, you recidivist?
Yeah, I'm gonna call people like driving badly recidivists.
Well,
okay, so and that's about Oscar.
Yeah, so where that title came from, and I actually met this. I must still tell you that story. I was trying to get the work that I'd already researched published, and no one was interested. I was literally shopping to all sorts of magazines, newspapers. There was, initially, tremendous excitement. At the end of the day, I wanted to publish Reeva in her own words. I won't say the magazine's name, I might get into trouble, but on her birthday last year, and the magazine just wasn't interested. And
it's really another different angle.
And then
for people, for women, it's a great angle.
And then I said, the trial's finished, the hype's finished, whatever. Come back to us when the trial starts. And
so the hype's back today.
Yeah. So I still was basically sitting on this. It was basically a 10,000 word manuscript, and a normal magazine article's between 500 and 1,500, at the most 2,000. So this was a big thing, and I thought you could publish it either as a reduced thing, or you could publish it as part 1, 2, 3, because it is that year.
But I think being on Amazon now, it can reach the world. At the end of the day, with the right amount of marketing.
Well, I'm relieved that what happened.
So how do you go about getting a book like this on Amazon as an ebook?
Well, let me tell you what happened. I was sitting on not just Reeva in her own words, but also you can't actually believe how much stories where I'd sent it to newspapers, they'd also get very excited and in the end just not use it. And in the end I had far more. I had about 30,000 words, and I was just sitting on, and this was just stuff, I was watching the case. I was obviously doing my other magazine work as well, and I was just, an angle would occur to me, I'd write about it, because that's how I work. If something interests me, I write about it. Maybe to do with the trial, but it may be to do with anything else. And in the end, I've accumulated this body of work, and I was, it's not a good situation for me where you writing, and then one particular newspaper we're going to publish something, and I'd go out and buy the paper, and it wasn't in there, and then I'd go the next, because it was a weekend paper, and I'd go the next.
And
it still wasn't there, and they wouldn't say to me, well, so we changed our minds, we're just not going to...
They just left it.
And then you eventually figure out... And normally they're actually supposed to pay you a kill fee, and they didn't even want to do that. Because, they even though I wrote it, they came back to me and said, can you change this, that, and that. In the end, I spent so much time... Anyway, apply that to 5 other articles, 10 other articles. So it was really kind of a struggle. In the end, I'm sitting on basically... 2 kind of bodies of work writing, and I'm not very happy about it. And I actually emailed John Carlin,
Yes.
Because he's writing about it. And
And
I
he's
thought,
world famous,
I've done all this work. Maybe I can give it away. Maybe I can give it to an author and they can do something with it. But I mean, this is like kind of precious information, It's hard-won data. Let's do something with it. It's facts. It's research. And then I saw on Facebook that I had a friend who had a friend who was a writer, not a fiction writer. His name is Vernon Bauman.
Yes.
And he actually is a lecturer, I think, in English or creative writing, I'm not quite sure, at the varsity. And so I didn't really know him at all, but I knew him by somebody else. And I basically said, hey, I'm a writer, let's meet up and chat about writing. And, I didn't know him at all and didn't kind of know what to expect. But something did change for me this year. I've always had the sort of opinion that you write something, it must stand on its own, it must be good enough. If it's not, it's not, and then you write something else. And that changed a little bit for me this year because I've kind of was in touch with Reeva Steenkamp, who wrote Frequenstad Murders, and you sort of realize these guys are big hitters, and even they need reviews, even they need publicity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They need their work out there, and they need people talking about it and so on. And it kind of, I guess I was a bit slow, but it kind of hit me. You need to, network a bit. You need to sort of reach out to people, other writers, reach out. And so I guess me meeting this guy was kind of reaching out.
Yeah.
I didn't really think it was anything more than just making a friend and basically we could talk a bit about writing and maybe share, critique each other's work, something as simple as that. When I told him what I'd written, Vernon said to me, you should publish this on Amazon. So I said, I don't have a publishing deal. I don't have and he said, you don't need one.
So you can register a book or...
And I mean, that blew my mind. I was like, what?
But you get money for that? If you do that?
No, I do. No.
But that's
but
fantastic.
let me tell you this part. I mean, this was the interesting part. Then I said I was arguing for a long time, probably hours. I said to him, no, I'm not going to do it. No, I don't want to go. And I said, it's the self-publishing route. I don't want to do self-publishing. Self-publishing is like, I think my work's good enough, but nobody else does. So I didn't want to go that route. And then I thought of this whole thing that I'd submitted it to magazines who accepted it, then rejected it for whatever reason. It may have been legal concerns, it may have been whatever. And then I thought, I think these stories are good enough. And what I felt most strongly of all was, I really have felt strongly that Reeva's story hasn't been told and nobody's paying attention to it, and it's even now it's just no one really it's like a little bit of, even on the Oscar Trial channel, there's just a little bit of we'll talk about it and then back to
it's
Oscar.
back to Oscar. So I want to get back to the other two books, but I also want people, if they want any questions about Reeva, and I want to find out after this from you, do you think he's guilty or not? Don't say anything now. Because that's very important. I mean, you've studied this case from the beginning up to now, and Reeva. So, yeah.
Can I call my lawyer for...
No, you don't. We can say anything. Okay. On it. So as jy net ingeskakel het, Nick van der Leek het 3 boeke en jy gaan van hulle kan wen. Ons gaan ook net hierna vir jou kan sê hoe jy dit kan doen. En die ene boek is Reeva in her own words. En is ongelooflik. Teruggaan op haar Facebook profile. Baie interessant om te lees. En dan Resurrection is 'n nuuskierig, ek is nuuskierig oor daai nog oor hom gesels nie. En dan ook 'n baie groot woord, Recidivist Acts, wat Oscar Pistorius and the Crime That Shocked the World. Maar op ons Facebook bladsy in the Sound of Your Life page, as ons terugkom gaan ek 'n paar van daai comments lees, want almal het 'n opinie oor hierdie saak nou al vir hoe lank. En dan gaan ons so ook bietjie dan nou paniek hoor as hy nou so intensief hierdie ding dopgehou het. Wat dink hy? Wat dink hy is Oscar? Ek self weet nog nie. Ek sal dit nou verder bespreek. Dis 'n moeilike ding vir my. So bly ingeskakel. Ek gaan ook weer die geleentheid gee om die ateljee te bel en dan 'n paar van julle comments lees op Facebook. Maar hierso is Blondie met Maria op OFM. Die klank van die lewer is kom praat met my saam met Jonay van Huisteen. Dis Blondie met Maria op OFM, die klank van jou lewe. Ons gesels nou al amper 'n uur, Oscar, maar meer Reeva saam met Nick van der Leek met kom praat met my saam Joran van Huisteen. Maar ons wil hê jy moet nou deel word van die gesprek. Ons gaan vinnig net hoor waar gaan se ander boeke. Jy kan hierdie e-books wen. Dis baie maklik as jy e-book kry. Ons gaan vir jou wys met Twitter hoe om dit te doen en jy kan sommer by die werk dit vinnig vir jouself download as jy een van die wenners is. Of ek kan dit vir jou mail, maar veral die Reeva in her own words, baie interessant om dit te lees. So net so vinnig van julle comments, al wat ek gevra op ons Facebookblad OFM The Sound of Your Life page. Wat is jou opinie oor die Oscar saak? What's your opinion about the Oscar case? Corneille Kleinhans, hy sê ek dink hulle ruk die dam onder die eend uit om hom te brandmerk as 'n voorbeeld, net omdat hy bekend is. Duisende moordenaars stap daagliks skotvry. Sharika Bets. Ek kry hom baie jammer, net soos ek haar ouers en familie jammer kry. Dan sê Jolandi Olofse, Suid-Afrikaners hou van sensasie, herken hy het dit gedoen, maar mense wat nie daar was en gesien het wat gebeur het nie, wil van hulle bedenkinge 'n storie maak. Ek sê ook geskiet het, ek sluit my elke aand in my kamer toe, wys my een persoon wat normaal dink en reageer in 'n toestand van skok. Los die oordeelsdag, sê sy Reeva Steenkamp Kutse, sê ek dink hulle kan die Oscar saak bietjie eenkant stoot en konsentreer op ons ou mense wat so doodgemaak word. En maar dit is nou die fokus is nou maar Oscar vanaand. Nicolet Oosthuizen, die media ruk alsweer uit proporsies soos gewoonlik. Hy skuldig, hy het erken, plaas doen hulle iets in die groep. Ja, selfde. Dis nie die fokus vanaand nie. Martie de Bruin, hy het gemoor, punt, ongeluk of nie, hy is 'n moordenaar. That's a harsh one, Nick. He's a murderer, ongeluk of nie. But that's funny. Accident or not. Imagine it was an accident. You know what I mean? So, fact is, he shot her. He said he shot her. I mean, that's a fact. The only question is premeditated or passion. So I don't know what your opinion is, because you've really gone into the Reeva stuff. You've really into this case. You wrote
I
3
feel like
books.
I'm being pushed into a corner here.
Yeah, so maybe you don't have to say yes or no. I must be honest, I don't know. At the end, it feels to me, whatever that judge decides, is he will forever be the only guy that really knows.
Sort of answer your question, I don't think it's going to be too difficult for the judge.
Yeah. If I was the judge, I would have said, you know what, I would have given maybe just suspended sentence. Well, I don't know. But the only reason is why, because he's still the only guy that knows.
I really want to respond to what one of the people said there.
Yes.
People who I said something along the lines of people who weren't there don't know. So if you weren't there, you don't know, and you'll never know. And the only people who know is Oscar, and the other one's Reeva, but she's not there anymore.
She's not there anymore. Yeah.
And I think it's very easy and dismissive to say that. To basically spend a very short amount of attention span and say, if you weren't there, you don't know. Move on. Now, I get that some people don't want to be
judgmental, or they don't want to choose.
But a lot of people actually, there are a lot of people who don't want to talk about the case or think about it. That's fine. But if there are people, I know someone very close to me whose father was murdered, and I can kind of understand. Her brother's a policeman, and I can understand why she doesn't really want to think about the case, because it's.
It's too close to home. Brings
that
bad
stuff
memories.
back. So I don't look at someone like that and say, that's wrong or anything. But I do think, if you're someone who cares about the case and you say, well, no one knows, then I have a kind of a problem with that. If you're someone who says, well, I don't really want to talk about that, then that's fine. That's fine. But
if you have an opinion, let's talk about it.
But
that's
to kind of be involved, like let's say you interested in the case, but your sort of default thing all the time is, well, you weren't there. So like if you're someone like me, who's like just a interested, curious person, you've got nothing to contribute, just stay out of it. Let the court sort this out. Now, so how I respond to that is, if you look at, for example, this David Bain case, where this guy shot his whole family, 2 brothers, a brother, 2 sisters, both parents, served 13 years in jail, and then was acquitted. And then he wanted to basically claim compensation for the time in jail.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's arrogant.
When you see that, you sort of wonder, jeepers, maybe we need to pay a bit more attention to what's going on. The same thing could happen with a Oscar trial or even Gikwastad, where someone gets acquitted because someone wasn't really paying attention, whether it's the society or whatever. So,
I see someone says, this case has been going on for so long, Derek Pretorius, hy kon al op parol uitgewees.
Yeah.
It's really dragging.
Yeah.
So, but you won't say guilty or not. Do you think it was a motive?
I just want to just quickly take that thing of if you weren't there, you don't know. We know,
Yes.
we have mountains of information. We have access to the courtroom. We're hearing exactly what they are saying.
Yes.
We are hearing what the people who were there are saying, right? And yes, it's for the judge to make the final decision. But as society, we actually have a role to play in kind of caring and kind of being involved. And I think it's, Vernon actually said this as well, is it's actually very important that we observe ourselves. And I think one of the things we do when we pay attention to a court case or, this sort of thing, and people who say, well, why must it be Oscar? Well, pay attention to a court case. It doesn't have to be Oscar, but any court case. Through that, you're going to start paying attention to yourself and society and crime and all those sort of issues. And I think that's really, really important. I've learned so much about myself, about other people. I've connected with many, many people, and it's really enriched me. And I think that's a very valuable process or whatever for me, even if I don't publish a single book. It's worth it just for the learning that I get and the knowledge that you get of what's also going on in the world. To answer your question, I've gone through a lot of information. I think the evidence is actually quite clear. I've actually quite recently connected a lot of dots, and I think I've come up with a very compelling motive, and that's a conversation no one has been having. It's not in the media. I don't know whether the media are scared of being sued. I know Oscar has.
Why don't you do another book about what you think the motive is?
But that's in Resurrection.
Is that in Resurrection?
What actually happened with Resurrection was...
And it's already available
it's already out.
And they can win that tonight as well. Okay.
But I just want to say
That's
this.
good.
What happened with Resurrection, I was, and I've even said this, I was ready to wrap up. I was done. I was finished, and I wanted it up really the day the court resumed. And then Piet van Zyl started testifying. And I was honestly, doing the final edits. And I was, working on my computer, and the Oscar trial was sort of going on. And I was just wanting to get this done so I could pay attention to the case and sort of take notes. And next thing, Piet van Zyl was talking. And he was basically giving critical information. He was saying, that the night that... that Reeva stayed over, the 13th, at 7 o'clock, he gave the time, I think it was 7:29 or something, while they were having dinner, he was sending emails to Manchester, arranging business class air tickets for Reeva, so that's a critical bit of information. Another thing that he said was, Oscar and he were planning his career, on the 7th of February, and which was the same day as the sports awards, which they both went to. And neither of them, all of them, Reeva and Oscar both tweeted lots of celebrities, but not each other, which is really interesting. So they were kind of like, when you do that, you're sort of being a brand ambassador and you're endorsing other people and you're saying, we here and we together, whatever. And they went as a couple and they didn't even endorse each other. Oscar didn't endorse Reeva and other way around. You've got to ask why. Why? If they're this couple, and why, and I think that Oscar wanted to. Oscar was very gung ho. He would have loved to, at every opportunity, say, I'm with Reeva and we're doing this and so on. And I think the resistance, surprisingly, actually came from Reeva. And that may have been a mistake. I think Capacity Relations said they don't think Oscar's good for a brand. Whether that's true, I'm not sure if I agree. I mean, at that time, I think Oscar had about 350,000 Twitter followers, and Reeva had about 3,000.
No, it's going to be good for your brand.
So
there's no way.
So even if it's just a little bit of, exposure, but that's to me shows you the quality of the kind of person Reeva was, she's not going to take the easy route. And at that stage, she was very excited about her career. It was a drop in the ocean compared to Oscar's, but she was very excited about her career, and she wanted to. She was just doing stuff, and she wanted to now, left at 8 kind of thing, And then Oscar, I think, came to her around about that time and said, "Come with me, come join my adventure." And I think the last thing he expected was for her to say no, like, "I want to be in a relationship with you," and all that.
But I'm not going to jump on this.
I'm not going to. I want to keep going with my career. That's important, and I don't think he expected that.
Yeah.
So what Piet van Zyl said just really blew my mind, because suddenly a lot of things shifted for me. I'd had a theory already, just based, I guess, on intuition and a lot of information that was there already, but getting this information was really, really critical. And then, he came back and he said, he'd also arranged air tickets for Reeva to join Oscar going to Brazil, and that would have been March 31st. And then he also mentioned something about a concert, Andrea Bocelli. And he then, he says that literally it was the 7th of June, he put the phone, I think, on video or something, and it was him and Oscar, and they phoned Reeva, and they told her about this, and she was very excited. That's how it goes. What I find very, very interesting in how this is what you pick up when you really pay attention to the information, because there are lots of little strategies going on. But what I found very interesting is Piet van Zyl starts at the end. He doesn't start
in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't start by talking about Brazil, which was March 31st. He starts by going to Manchester. So what he's actually doing is he's kind of confusing you a little bit. So you're like going, oh, well, it doesn't matter what date this was going on. By doing that, he also doesn't specifically say what Reeva was excited about. He says, we made a phone call, we were talking about the Bocelli concert, and it's implied in that, yes, she was excited about the whole thing. She was going to go to Manchester, and she was going to go to Brazil. I don't think she was. I don't think, given where her career was, she was ready to you can't go away for weeks at a time. And what about, because she was a brand custodian herself, or brand ambassador. So she's representing Nimmerway and all these brands. You can't just dump them. You've got contractual obligations. Yeah. And she would have cared about them. And that's another thing a lot of people don't know is she actually met with capacity relations that day, the 13th. So the 13th, she's met with capacity relations who've said, we don't think Oscar's good for your brand. So guess what happened when she arrived at...
Yeah, and telling him you're not good for my brand.
I'm sure they sat down
ego.
To dinner, and Oscar said, well, how was your meeting?
Yeah, and she would say, I'm not going to... Yeah, I'm not going to be on this wagon. It goes
even further than that if you go into Resurrection. It's not just...
Yes.
There's quite a lot of information.
But that's in Resurrection.
But I just want to mention this. There's a change in tone on the 13th. And it's literally, it's very, very, I think it's on WhatsApp. Lots of lovey-dovey stuff, and then suddenly there's a change of tone. It's talking about a shitty thing. I don't know if I can say that on radar. Just but,
it's fine. It's live.
And I don't know if you just go and, well, you can either look at it in my book or just Google it. But on the 13th, they send these messages, and you can tell there's there's definitely a shift.
Moeilijkheid, yes.
And here's the very interesting part, is she's actually saying to him, don't you rather want to spend tonight with your family? Don't you want to spend it with your brother? And she says, it could either be Martin Rooney, but I think he was back in England by then. That was Oscar's friend. I think she meant Amy. She may have meant M for Amy. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but the point is, Reeva didn't, even before she got to Oscar, she didn't actually want to go there. And she even had an engagement with Nimmerway, I think it's Nimmerway.
Yes.
That night. She had an engagement which she cancelled at the last minute at 4:45. She emailed them to say, I'm not going to make it. That's another thing. If you look at her Twitter, she's endorsing them all the time. So this is an important client. She's endorsing them all the time. Yeah. Why on earth, such an important client, do you kind of laat in die steek at the last second? And I think Oscar was upset at that point, and being a good person, she basically said, well, look, I'm not gonna just say, well, look,
I'm going to leave all my stuff and just jump on your wagon.
No. She wasn't going to say to him, just deal with it. I'm going to go and do my thing, and I'm going to go to Nimue and do my thing. She was, even though she was kind of maybe not necessarily dumping him, but basically saying, look, I'm not on board with this career thing.
Yes.
I'll go with you to the Bocelli thing maybe or whatever, but I'm not going to. I'm
going to leave everything.
Yeah, I'm not going to be your sidekick or whatever. Yeah. I've got my career. And then she went there, and I think, he was upset. I don't know if you know, he was thinking of buying a massive mansion in Johannesburg.
Yeah, and he wanted to renovate. And
they were going to move into, he thought they were going to move in together. Now, they only knew each other 3-4 months. I don't know what you think about relationships, but 3 or 4 months now.
It's too fast.
It's very, very fast.
Yeah. I mean, I've been married for more than 13 years. I still don't want to live with one wife. No, I'm joking. but you're giving away your whole book.
Yeah,
we're going to give away 25 copies of your ebooks.
25 of Reeva.
Of Reeva, and a fascinating book.
And 25 of Resurrection. So I'm not sure what I said, if you favorite Reeva.
I think people must tweet you so you can see, and just add maybe OFM 9497.
What they could also do, I think we must rather do it like this. Go into my Twitter stream.
Yeah, and you are at?
I'm at High Res Life. It's HIREZ.
REZ.
Yeah.
High Res
Life. LIFE. Yeah. And then you probably have to sort of go down a little bit, but find the tweet that basically says, I think it's #25, and then it says something about favorite Reeva in own words, and the first 25, let's say from right now, who favorite that, I'll be able to track, and then what I'll do is I'll contact you on Twitter, get your email address, and then you'll be sent a free copy. So
25 favorites for Reeva gets that one, and
25 retweets of that, obviously of that tweet, I will give a free copy of Resurrection.
Okay. We're going to repeat that. Ons gaan vinnig na 'n song toe, en dan wil ons hoor of enigiemand vra het. En wat mense se opinie, ek gaan vir jou dat leennommer gee, jy kan hom so lank neerskryf, 089-510-24224, jy luister OFM, en voor ek die liedjie speel, Wicked Games, it's a song,
Isaac,
Chris Isaac, but you say it fits in with
listen to the words.
Listen to the words. Hy het bietjie met jou gepraat. As jy net ingeskakel het, ek gesels met Nick van der Leek. Hy het 3 e-books geskryf, en dit is baie, baie interessant. Die een wat ek nou al so 'n bietjie gelees het, Reeva in her own words, het hy teruggegaan op haar Facebook, maar Facebook tot haar eerste inskrywing, en dit is ongelooflik om te besef hoe kan jy goed van mense leer net oor Facebook, en dan Resurrection, en hierdie boeke kan jy dan nou vir jouself wen. So ons soek, ek gaan dit herhaal, at High Res, REZ Life, High Res Life, ek sal dit op ons Facebook ook sit, dan sal jy sien, hy het getweet oor Reeva, eerste 25 wat het favorite, sal hy daai vir jou stuur, en eerste 25 wat het RT Resurrection. Maar eers, so 'n bietjie Chris Isaacs met Wicked Games, dan gaan ek nog 'n paar van ons Facebook comments lees. Is baie opinies oor die Oscar saak, en dan ook die telefoonlyne vir jou oopmaak, om te hoor, wat is jou opinie oor die Oscar saak, en al is jy nou 'n bietjie moeg vir hom, dan kan jy nou maar sê, ek is nou moeg vir die saak, maar dis nie meer te lank nie, ek dink is die laaste week van die closing. Jy luister, kom praat met my, so met Jornay van Huisteen op OFM. It's Chris Isaac, Wicked Games op OFM, die klank van jou lewe. Die ateljee nommer 089-510-2424. Ons gesels Oscar nog vir so 'n rukkie. Net wat is jou opinie? Net kan enigiets wees op ons Facebookblad, vra ek nou ook vir jou. Dis OFM The Son of Your Life page. Toby Bird sê hy gaan skuldig kom aan strafbare manslag, nie moord nie. Bahamas Lily, dis 'n lekker naam. Hy moet tronk toe. Hy moet vrot in die tronk, aangesien die video uitgelek het. Anet Eis. Ja, dit is nou politiek, wat ek kan nie dink die Oscar saak het enigiets met politiek te doen nie. Jy moet fokus op die vraag. Sean Jordan, him, Reeva, and God knows the truth. The sad thing is she ain't there no more, and God can't say anything, but he can expose the truth through him. If Oscar is hiding anything, we as people will keep on speculating and judging him the same time consoling Reeva's family. Dis Sean Martico Komoor om eerlik oor my opinie te gee. Vir my maak die hele hofsaak rondom Oscar 'n bespotting van die regstelsel. Hoekom erken hy net nie dat hy skuldig is nie? Michelle Botes, boring en afgesaag. As ek die regter was, sou ek hom skuldig bevind aan 'n strafbare manslag om tronk te stuur 25 jaar sonder verlof om te appeleer wat hy wel gaan doen. Charlie Jonker, die storie moet nou tot op einde kom, is 'n grap vir sommige mense. Christo Oosthuizen, dis bad credit dude, jammer, jy raak nie trigger happy as jy iets in die badkamer hoor nie, en jy weet jou meisie is by jou. Jy weet selfs verskillende opinies. John Bester, ek sê hy is skuldig, en staan uit jou bed uit op, wil gaan skiet, maak jy seker wat langs jou slaap nie, daai is 'n argument ek baie al gehoor het. Then Letare Mokone, bottom line, he killed her, doesn't matter what his reasons are. You should at least man up and own up to the crime, then let the courts decide his fate. Nikki Cronje, ek sê moeg dat die stories uitgereik word, hy weet wat hy gedoen het nie reg is nie, en net God mag hom oordeel, die saak moet nou klaar kom. So, jy kan ons bel in die ateljee as jy enige vraag selfs vir Nick het, en onthou jy kan die boeke wen e-books, en dit is, die een is, in the words, Reeva in her own words, so jy moet gaan na Twitter toe, na High Res Life, ek het dit ook geretweet by @yournay, dis JOHRNE, by High Res met 'n Z, REZ Life, as jy favorite of RT, kan jy van hierdie boeke wen, en ek sien al klaar, Marita, is al een, hier loop hy nou. Okay, jy het werk, hoor.
Okay.
Yes, it's moving. It's really moving. So, bel ons in ateljee as jy opinie het 0895102424, 0895102424. What happens, you think, being into this case? What happens with a guy like me that doesn't have millions? Let's say it was a mistake. Let's say tonight I hear something that's really a mistake, and I shoot, like my sister-in-law staying with us tonight. I forget for a split second she's there. Me and my wife's here. She goes to the bathroom. I totally, for a split second, forget she's there. I shoot her through the door or in my hallway. You know? What happens to me? Because I don't have millions to get attorneys like that. Before you answer that, let's take the scores. Okay. Oi, Femelo.
Ja.
Yes, wie praat nou?
Nou, ek gaan net weer. Wie?
Yes.
Ek weet jy moet nou hierdie dinge vir die advokate los. Dit is niks in sentraal Suid-Afrika wanneer jy het 'n moesprogram. Ek het jou al baie gebel. Maar op die einde van die dag sê jy vir ons sê wie skuldig en wie onskuldig. Ons praat hier oor Mangaung se gagas.
Ek sal volgende keer klap ons op so. Dankie hoor.
Ons maak 'n hele aand van Mangaung se.
Maar weet wat die probleem is, mense gaan te veel vloek dan. Maar dankie, ons is al amper klaar met die gesprek, en ek dink dit was maar net hierdie boeke is baie interessant van die Reeva. Dankie hoor.
Ek kan vaar, baie dankie oornight.
Alright.
Verder.
Bye.
Dankie, bye.
And he brings up a point.
Can I respond to that a little bit?
Yeah, you can, but before you do, that's why I totally understand that people's tired of it, you know. But I think your angle on Reeva in her own words, I think for me that's the most important thing that must come out of this interview tonight. So my die belangrikste is dat mense moet regtig dit gaan lees, en dit is net iets anders. Ons hoor alles van Oscar, soos jy sê, alles gaan oor Oscar.
People think that,
maar daai boek is so great.
People think it's rushing to judgment, but it's actually the opposite. You're curious and you're trying to find information, and what they don't realize is what information you actually uncover. And what's quite interesting, you know, I got the title for Recidivist Acts from Yanni Allen, who wrote a letter to Oscar. Yes. He spoke about this wasteland of privilege, etc., and that's where I got the title. And Vernon actually said you're mad to use it because no one knows the word or whatever. But I just wanted to. Even know it, yeah. But anyway, where was I? What?
We're going to go back to my question.
Oh, no, Yanni Allen.
Yanni Allen. But is that the same Yanni Allen with Eugene Terbrans?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I basically told her, I said, look, I hope you don't mind, I've used your little epithet. Yeah. And
another then, big word.
Yeah. Epithet, and then I basically, and then she was interested. She wanted to read it, which was quite nice.
Yes.
And she's actually very recently said, which, you know, which is, I think, it's quite a compliment to me. She said, Harry Nell needs to read this. Someone bring this to his attention. And this may be news to your listeners and maybe even to you. I've been in touch with Kim Martin. I once...
Who is Kim Martin?
Kim Martin is Reeva's cousin.
Okay.
And I wanted to bring... It's quite a funny story. I wanted to bring something to her attention. And, I was watching the Oscar trial, and I sent her a message on Facebook. We're not friends on Facebook, but she is obviously on Facebook, and you can message.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So here I am at home working, and I just feel I need to bring her attention to something. So I send her a message. I look at the TV, and she looks down. The camera's on her, and she looks down, presumably at her phone or whatever, and I think, well, not necessarily me, Next thing, I get a reply. So it obviously was her.
And you see it on TV.
Yeah.
Keep your story. Let me just take this call away from home. Hallo? Hallo?
Hallo, Corneil.
Yes, wie praat nou?
Dis Albert Padi.
Sê weer?
Man, ek het nie baie eerste maar vir gou vinnig my sê vir jou.
Ja.
Die mense is baie gou om te oordeel.
Yes.
Ja, die graag sê gang. Wie is ons om te oordeel? Die Bybel sê ons vir ons is nie daar om te oordeel. Ons moet net ontvang en luister wat gesê word.
Nee, ek stem saam. Nee, ons gaan definitief nie oordeel nie. Dankie.
Dankie jullie. Ek luister elke keer aan by jou program. Baie goeie program hoor.
Baie dankie, ek waardeer dit. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.
There's people. Well, I'm going to come back to Kim Martin. That's the thing about talking about stuff like the Oscar trial is people think you're judging, but it was the biggest Braaivleis story of the year so far. If you mention Oscar, people's got an opinion, and talking about it is not necessarily judging that guy. And like I say, I mean, we had a discussion earlier. There's so many things with anybody that gets murdered, where that person comes from, or you never really, you must get into someone's shoes.
Yeah.
Being in a situation. But you wanted to say, Kim Martin.
Yeah.
So on TV she replied and she came back to the message.
It was just such a strange thing with technology today.
Yeah.
And I've actually a couple of times emailed her. I would really like her to, and her mother, obviously. The last book I'm writing is Revelations.
Yes.
And that's really where I want to dedicate that actually to Reeva, is where her family basically just share his memories and so on, and but I don't know if they would want to do that. If that doesn't happen, I'll have to find some other way of doing a tribute. But I think I don't know. I'm actually quite hopeful.
You haven't thought of sending an ebook to a mother? Because you can now, through the cousin, do that. Because my personal opinion is, I think you started maybe a thing. That's why I say maybe you must register it or something. But to go back, I've never heard of someone writing a book about going back on someone's Facebook. So for me, at the end, it's something brand new. I think it's something very emotional, even as a family. Imagine, I mean, people will pay you to say, listen, my son passed away. I think people will pay money for that. They don't have the time for that. But in the style, I know this is a famous person. That's why I really want people to read, especially that one, Reeva in her own words. It's for me a total new thing. I think it's special if a mother going to go through that.
Yeah, well, look, what's very interesting with that is, in the beginning, you see a real person. I mean, at that stage, she wasn't famous, and she's just like everybody else, and she loses her phone, she's sick, she's... has a nice night out, parties, whatever. But it's, she's like one of us. But it's very populated. It's only very close to the end of her life, really the last year or two, that her Facebook gets kind of cluttered with brand messages, and you start to lose Reeva there, because she's now using her Facebook to
as a
promote.
Marketing. Because I've seen the parts about her previous boyfriend. Because I didn't know them. I don't know about them.
And that's what I thought was critical. Is there's a thing in law where you look at a thing called precedent, and precedent is you base your finding on previous behavior.
Yes.
And with Reeva, I think it's quite important to say, how did she conduct her relationships with other men before Oscar? What does she, and by the same token, you do the same with Oscar. How did Oscar conduct himself with other women, right? And we know he was in a 4-year relationship. I'm not sure if that was with Samantha Taylor. It may have been. But he also had many short kind of relationships.
Yeah.
Reeva was actually different. Reeva had
long-term
Reeva had very few, like basically in the entire 5-year period, I think she had one serious relationship. There was another shortish one with Francois Hougaard, I think. But
Yes.
But basically, if you just think of this in human terms, he has a beautiful, beautiful woman. She's, she's fairly successful and so on. And she could, if she wanted to, she could really have a fun time in that department, if you want to call it that. But she was a conscientious person. She was trying to look after her parents, that kind of thing. And that really, that really touched me. That she was actually a hard work. She's working very hard. She's diligent, and it was impressive.
I would. My only advice still would be send a mother a copy.
No,
I think it's very special.
I think a mother will have seen it because
yes.
Look, I did the same with Kim as I did with her mother. I basically sent her a message. I don't know how much she uses. She is on Facebook, but I don't know how much
she's actively.
But I did send it. I sent Kim the original manuscript. I sent her the original. And, we had a couple of emails, but I think I can understand from her perspective. I think she sees me as just another journalist, just another person wanting something. Yeah. And that's understandable. I understand.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, last time, before I want to ask you about one thing. Let's just give that detail because the people are tweeting like crazy. The first 25 favorites of Reeva in her own words is a tweet you find. There's no at high res met 'n Z. High res life, een woord. High res life. En jy sal nou sien dis Nick se Twitter account en as jy dit dan nou retweet, dan kry jy Resurrection, die eerste 25 en die eerste 25 wat dit favorite Reeva in her own words and you've got some work to do. Ons is amper by 25, I think. Yeah. But so people are, no, not really. We need a couple more. But people are tweeting and doing it. Just to wrap it up, I think people must get this. Reeva in her own words. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to go back to your Facebook comments, take some calls. But you as a writer, some projects coming up?
The very next ebook is Restutio, which comes from the Latin Restutio ad integrum, which
is restitutie, yes.
Yeah. And, a lot of the people are saying, they're sick of the court case and what does it mean and who cares and that sort of thing. And I want to sort of address that and basically say, what can we learn from this? And there's actually a hell of a lot we can learn. One of the things is, can the media and the law, as in the courts and so on, can they be kind of bedfellows? Can they help each other? Can they, do they enhance one another or not? And the part that is unfortunate, I think, is what you're going to see now is this thing that's just come out, the video. The video. Yeah. That is going to be used as a weapon, I predict, by the defense to say it's
not a fair trial now.
Yeah, it's not a fair trial. So in other words, the defense can rub its hands and say, I'm so glad this was in the media. Yeah. We didn't really want it. So.
But Oscar May, I don't know of die luisteraars weet van die video wat nou uitgekom het, want dit was nou
he made it, yeah.
But why did he make it?
Exactly.
And for me, that it made it. I mean, it's the closest to a circus for me.
I mean,
in terms of someone's not thinking in his camp.
I mean, it's literally a camera. No, I don't think it's people not thinking. I think it's
they're thinking.
I think it's something in your back pocket. That's what I think.
Yeah, that I just like
it's
it
to
was
secure. It is, and I'm speculating. Let me say that very clearly. I'm speculating, but I think it is specifically to secure an appeal. That's and that's kind of the theme of Resurrection was it was asking the question. A lot of people say you're judging and so on. I'm actually asking questions. I'm saying, what if? Let's think about this, and maybe some people don't want to, and you have the right to not think. I'm curious, so I'm thinking about it, and you can learn a lot. And so asked the question: is resurrection possible for Oscar? That's the issue. And to some extent for Reeva, just in terms of, what can we do to honour her? Can we kind of bring her back in some way? And I've sort of suggested a law bursary, because she studied at Nelson Mandela University, and I've actually mentioned that to Kim Martin. And I've also been very quickly in touch with the university. But there seems like almost a moratorium. No one really wants to talk. And for me, it's a little bit sad, because the only little bit of feedback is going to overseas media. So we don't really know. So the whole idea with resurrection was: is it possible for Oscar to, make a comeback? What if he's acquitted? What if he can?
Let's say he's acquitted. They say, sorry, it was an accident, 100%.
Yeah.
I still don't think. I mean, sponsor-wise, but look, okay, it wasn't murder.
Could he come back and compete again? Could he just basically resume his life? And those were the questions I was asking.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
And so.
Tiger Woods did it, but luckily didn't. He just killed his women with love. But he made a comeback, even with Nike stick with him. But murder or killing someone, not murder, premeditated or by accident, it's a big thing. It's too big.
The people who pay attention to the case may have heard of guys like Ulrich Roux, who is on the Oscar Trial Channel, and David Dadich. And, I've spoken to them, and I've asked them what are the chances? What are the chances of appeal? And, we wrote this before today, right? Now, this is what I'm trying to say. What's the value of asking these questions? Before what's emerged today, literally what we spoke about, and another person who directed my attention to this is Bert Prella. I don't know if you know him, is a divorce attorney in Cape Town. They literally said to me, one of the best ways to get an appeal is to go the route of trial by media, and the media has prejudiced our client, and it hasn't been fair, etc., etc., etc. And that looks like exactly what has happened. And I mean, you can. So anyway, that's then the next step is you have an appeal, and then so all these people who are sort of saying, "Well, can't wait for this to be over."
Het gaan nie vinnig verbygaan nie.
It's actually
just
far
starting.
from finished.
Yeah.
Well,
and then other books besides Oscar being a writer.
Besides the Oscar series,
yes.
I wonder who's listening. There's actually a big project that I'm not allowed to speak too much about at this point.
So people must just remember your name. So look for the book.
Well, look, what
Nick
I can
van
say
den
is,
Leek,
and I'm being really sincere when I say this, this particular project means far more to me than the Oscar series. The Oscar series, to be honest, I find it very, very interesting. Do I enjoy it? I'm not sure if I enjoy it that much. It's kind of a sad story.
Yes.
I would like to find the positive in it. I think there is a lot of positive. Do I enjoy the story? Not so much. I find it fascinating and interesting. I wouldn't say I enjoy it that much. Now, this other project that I'm talking about, I'm very interested in, but I'm also there's a lot more to it than just being interested. So I think I'm kind of invested, and that's I think it's related to someone that's very well known in Bloemfontein and is very well respected and very well loved by the community, and that's a story that. Also, in the same way that Reeva, I felt that story needs to be told.
Yes.
It's actually weird. I'm thinking about this.
But it's a positive story this time.
Yeah, no, very positive story. Yes. But I must say, thinking about it for the first time, comparing that to this person, this is definitely a story that not only needs to be told, but I think people will be very interested in.
But we'll be back in studio with that book. Nick, thank you so much. We chatted for an hour, 40 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my longest interview ever on the show. Yeah. My longest interview was 30 minutes.
And it felt like
and we
10
played
minutes.
three songs.
Okay.
I'm going to repeat, so I'm going to go back for some comments. I'm going to repeat that retweets, what that people must do.
Okay.
And just again, I think I must congratulate you on doing something for the first time. Because I read a lot. I'm on Twitter permanently. I love media, and I haven't seen any angle like that. And I think the people had missed out in terms of even publishers. But now you're there, it's spreading like this. I think we can do a lot more to help you, but I think it's a great concept.
I appreciate
Reeva,
that.
in her own words, going back on her Facebook, I think it was fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me in studio. I appreciate
Yes.
that.
Yeah. No, we're definitely going to do something in future. So as jy net
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I